Thank you so much for tuning in to the Healing Over Everything podcast. I am your host, T, and I wanted to take the opportunity before we started the show to really thank everyone who takes the time to listen to our show every other Monday, regardless of if you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify. It is much appreciated. You have afforded me the opportunity to reach over 1,000 views on YouTube. And for a new show, I think that's super amazing. So I just wanted to thank you so much for listening in and being a part of the show with us. And as my initial introduction of this show, the reason that we exist is because I wanted to really share my processes and my journey when it came to healing. As we all know, at some point in life, we all are going to go through the process of healing, that we all need to heal from something, either something that we've experienced, seen, or heard over our lifetime. Something traumatic, a loss, an illness. We're healing from something, be it physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. We're all on the path of healing at some juncture of our life. And I wanted to share the things that I've done to heal over everything. And one of the things that I used in my process of healing is the art of therapy, going to see a counselor. And I know in the Black community, that's kind of a taboo topic, right? You know, as we were growing up, if you're, a person of a certain age, when you heard therapy or someone going to see a therapist or a counselor, you would put a label on them, right? Why are you going to see a counselor? You don't need to go to a therapist, or they think that you're crazy, or it's out of the ordinary, it's out of the norm. Black people don't go to therapists. We fix ourselves, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's really a sad state of affairs when you're going through something, you need help, but you won't seek out aid and assistance from a professional. And that's not where I wanted to be. So one of the very first things that I did in my process and in my journey was to really seek out a counselor. And before I did that, what I did was, I did my research, and I actually went to my friends, my neighbors, my coworkers, my church members, and I asked them, do anyone of you all see a counselor or a therapist? Can you recommend someone to me that has, really helped you on your journey? And that's what I encourage you to do. Start there. So if you don't know where to start, just ask around, ask the people around you. Have you seen a therapist? Is there someone that you can recommend? And, see where that takes you. And if and when they recommend someone, Google can be your friend. Go out and do your research. Go in and read their reviews. See what other thoughts and opinions that people who have seen that particular therapists are saying about them, right? Dig in, just same way you would dig in to find out about that new boyfriend that you're dating. Really do your research about the therapist, but ask the people around you, have you seen a therapist? Is there someone that you can recommend? And if that doesn't work for you, the next thing that you could use, or the next step that you could take to finding a reliable counselor would to be go to your primary care physician. You see that person annually. They know the things that you're going through. I'm sure that you may have shared some of your challenges, and ask them to refer you to a therapist, right? They're able to, they know what type of insurance that you have. They know that therapist would be in your network. So ask your primary care physician to see if they can refer someone to you. That's another step that you could take in finding a reputable therapist that can aid you on your journey. And a lot of our employers offer an EAP and an employee assistance program. And with an employee assistance program, Those are options where you can have between 1 to 5 sessions with a therapist or counselor, and you don't have to pay for it out of pocket. It's just something that's provided to you by your employer. And it doesn't have to be work related. So you don't have to talk about work related things. So you can seek out a counselor if you are going, if you need couples therapy, right? If you need, and I've done that actually. Me and my ex-husband, we did a couple of sessions of couples therapy through my EAP, right? And we did not have to pay for those sessions. I believe with that particular employer, we got 3 sessions. And, that's a start. So even if you don't have health insurance, right? Or you're just kind of shopping around to see, you're kind of leery about a therapist, but you want to see what it's about. Use that EAP, and get a few sessions in and see, maybe if that's something that's for you. Because even though I believe in therapy wholeheartedly, 100%, and I really do believe that it helps you to really kind of evaluate where you are in your life, it may not be for you, or that particular therapist may not be for you. So use that EAP to kind of get your feet wet if that's something that's new to you. And when it comes to therapy, I want you to be completely in the know that a therapist is not going to fix your problem, as far as they don't have that ability to fix it for you. So when you go into a session, don't go in with the mindset that this person is going to fix me or fix my situation. Right? You have to go in with a realistic perspective. The person that you sit down with that is a medical professional that has gone to school for therapy and or counseling is there to give perspective, to give insight, right? To be a sounding board for you, to be a listening ear for you. They don't have a dog in the fight, right? So they're neutral in the situation, right? A lot of therapists are going to challenge your thinking. Okay, so why do you feel this way? What they're doing is they're trying to get you into the rhythm of self-evaluation, right? Self-discovery, knowing who you are and how you respond to situations. One of the things that my therapist helped me with is they actually introduced me to affirmations, right? I remember during a session, my therapist sent me home with some papers of that were full of affirmations. And prior to that, I was not really privy to that, right? So I incorporated that into my daily life, and I began to affirm myself and tell myself what I am capable of doing. And that was because of the therapist that I was going through too. So they introduce you to processes that might be a benefit to where you are in your life, right? A lot of times they will help you with your trauma response and the way that you respond to things, right? Another one of my therapists introduced me to the knowledge of knowing about the response styles, the fight, the flight, the fawn, and what is it? Fight, flight, fawn, and I can't remember the last one for some reason. But freeze is the last one. Fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. And that was a super eye-opener for me, right? It helped me to understand, at different phases of my life and the things that I go through, I may respond differently. And it helped me to really navigate those areas and to recognize them in myself, and then how to pivot so that I can not remain in those detrimental spaces, right? A therapist really helps to give you perspective And I think having a different perspective when you're going through things is necessary because you're only looking at it from one lens. We can only see things from our own eyes and perspective, right? So we have a singular view of things. But if you have a person to come in and say, well, what if you look at it this way, right? And then also give you the opportunity to speak and to get those thoughts, feelings, and emotions out. For me, that was huge because a lot of times when we're going through stuff, we really just need to talk it out, right? Not even that we necessarily need direction. A lot of times we do, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't need direction. Sometimes we just need someone to listen to what we're going through, right? To know that we're being heard. That's a big thing for me. And in different points of my life, I didn't feel like I was seen and or heard. So if you are in that situation where you don't feel like you're heard, how much of a benefit would going to a therapist give you? Because that's what they're there to do. They're there to listen and offer a new, fresh perspective. So I want you to be realistic if you do decide to take the road of therapy, to not go in thinking that therapist is going to magically sprinkle fairy dust over you and all of your problems are going to disappear, because then you're going to be disappointed, right? But just know that they're there to be a support and an aid to you and to give you fresh perspective. And then also when you go in, be open-minded and be willing to be vulnerable in those spaces. A lot of times, we're not really open to sharing our personal business and details of our life with a total stranger. And I completely understand that, but be open and willing to go through the process and do the things that you're there to do, because otherwise that session will not be of a benefit to you. So just make sure that you're doing that as well. And then also, one of the challenges that I came up against when I first sought out therapy was finding one that was for me, right? I remember after the loss of my son, I sought out a grief therapist, a grief counselor specifically, right? I went online. I went to the first thing I did, I went onto my insurance website and I looked under that particular provider, right? I was looking for a therapist. I went to my insurance. I looked under therapy. I looked for therapists that were near my home because I didn't want to travel far. And I wanted a female therapist. So I narrowed my search down to female therapist. And then I specifically wanted a grief counselor. So I did that. And then, I did my research. I read the reviews, and their schooling and things like that. I did my research on the therapist and I narrowed it down to 2. And I made my appointments. I went in for my first session and, I talked about what I needed to talk about in the session. And it wasn't a good experience from the very beginning. When I walked into the office, I didn't feel warm and welcome, and that's important to me. But I gave it, I still went in and I still did my session and left that session, made my appointment for the next session the next week, went in and for my second session, and everything that I talked about in my previous session, that particular therapist could not remember anything that I told her. She didn't remember where I lived. She didn't know how long ago my son had passed away. She couldn't remember his name. And what did we talk about again last week? And that just rubbed me the wrong way. So after I left that session, I was like, oh no, I am not going back there again. But I didn't let it deter me from therapy itself. But what I did was said that therapist is not for me, right? And it's okay. Don't continue to go to a place that you're not being heard, right? She didn't hear me and I needed her to hear me, and I needed her to retain the information that I was giving her, because that's important. That's important. So if you happen to go to a therapist and you don't have a positive experience, don't let that completely sway you from therapy as an option. You just move on and you find someone else, because there is someone out there. And that's what I did. I went out. Now I was upset. So I'm like, what kind of therapist is this? But it didn't let it completely deter me. So I just went out and I found another therapist. And the next person that I saw was extremely helpful and helped me on the process in my journey. And then also along the way, in different times of my life, because I've been to multiple therapists over my life, right? For different things, not just, for grief or marriage counseling, for independent counseling, for depression, over the span of my life, I've been to several therapists. But one of the things that I will say, when you are seeking out a therapist, to also make sure that you're seeking out the right type of therapist, right? There are different kinds of therapists and there are different options available to you. And now, because we live in an age where we don't necessarily actually have to go into a therapy office, which is an amazing thing, especially if you're new to therapy. You may not be comfortable going in and sitting down one-on-one with a total stranger, right? So there are new options out there available to us now. There's so many online options. There is an app that's called BetterHelp. There is Talkspace. I know that I've used that one before, and you actually are able to text to like FaceTime and have live video conferences. You can texting. You can do the live video chat. There are options out there where you don't actually have to go into an office and sit down every week with someone, right? And then you don't have to have insurance. Like I said, you can use that EAP. There are therapists that are specifically for certain things, right? If you are looking for a person of color, there is a online search. My daughter actually told me about this. It's blacktherapy.com. You can go on there and find a Black therapist, right? So you don't have to go in the office. You can use an app and text and video chat and things like that. You can seek out a person of color if that's an option for you. You can seek out specific types of counselors, be it grief counselors, couples therapy counselors. I believe there's one called Gain online that's specifically for couples. If you are of the LGBTQ plus community, there are specific counselors to that. So there's so many options out there. And if you never thought about therapy, I want you to consider it, because it is a viable option for you and it is helpful, as long as you go in with the right mindset, right? Like I said, don't go in thinking that person's going to fix your problem, but they are going to provide you that insight and perspective. And then go in and be willing to be open and vulnerable and talk about the things that you are going through, and be willing to listen to the perspective that they give. In certain situations, they may even give you homework, right? And in certain situations, I was given like, okay, so I want you the next session when you come back, I want you to have thought about this. And then I want us to talk about that. So they kind of lead you. That way it's just not you're sitting down and you just start talking, right? They're guiding the situation. And you can go to therapy for a limited amount of time, or you can go to therapy over the span of your lifetime, because you're always going to be encountering challenges and situations where therapy may be necessary. So don't look at it as, oh, I'm not going to a therapist because I'm not crazy, right? You don't have to have mental challenges to go to a therapist. They're there to help guide you and to give you that insight and perspective and give you the necessary tools and techniques to handle situations, because that's not something that we're taught over our life, right? When we're born, we're not given a handbook to say, okay, at this phase in your life, you might go through this. So here are some tools of how to handle it. And then as you get older, you might go through this. So here's some things that might help you. We don't get that handbook, right? But these are professionals that have gone to school and gotten degrees, and they have the knowledge and the wisdom to help us get through situations in our lives. So why not use them? Why not seek out medical professionals? So what if someone thinks you don't need to be going to a therapist? That's not what we do. Well, that might not be what you do, but that's what I'm doing because I am struggling in an area of my life and I need assistance. And why not get assistance from someone that has gone to school, right, for that particular thing? So I know that therapy has been extremely beneficial for me over my life, and it has given me the tools that I need so that when situations do arise in my life, I can pull from that knowledge and information, right? I can pull from the things that I've been directed by a therapist, and it really has been helpful for me. So if you have never thought about that in your journey, I want you to consider it. Really consider going and sitting down and talking with someone. And if you are not comfortable, like I said, with that one-on-one interaction and going into an actual office, use online options. Use those apps. We're on our phones all day long and we text all day long. Why not text with someone that's going to assist you and aid you on your journey and give you that fresh perspective that you need? When you're struggling, why struggle when you don't need to? You know what I'm saying? Why, and I'm not saying that you can't talk to friends and family and that they can't really help you with the things that you're going through, because they can in certain situations, but sometimes they don't have the necessary knowledge and tools that you need to really get you through that phase, right? So just consider it as an option. And if you need any resources or you don't know where to start, like I said, consider asking those around you first for recommendations. Consider going to your primary care physician and asking them for a referral. And then, go to your employer and say, do we have anything? Do we have an employee assistance program where I can have several sessions or 1 or 2 sessions with a counselor or a therapist that I don't have to pay for? Because I know right now things are extremely expensive. And you may not have the extra money to go out and pay for a therapy session, but go to your employer and say, hey, is this an option? And if it is, call that number. It's usually an 800 number. The process is usually not that difficult. They don't ask for a whole bunch of information. But then you can schedule sessions and then say, how many sessions do I get? And like I said, I know a lot of companies will offer anywhere between 1 and 5 sessions. 5 sessions is a lot if you use them in a way, that you can really be helped out in this situation. 5 sessions is a lot. So, just go and follow those particular steps first if you don't know where to begin, and then go to Google and, type, depending on what situation you're going through, type that in, couples therapy or grief counseling or whatever situation that you're going to. Go to Google. We go to Google for everything else. So let's go there and try to find some assistance with the things that we're going through and the struggles that we're going through. So I just really wanted to talk about that because, like I said, that was one of the very first options that I went to when I was going through things. And I will continue to go to therapy. I will continue to seek out help. I'm not going to try to go through a situation alone when there are people out there that are qualified to help me, right? I'm not going to struggle in situations where I don't have to struggle. So if you are currently going through something and you are just at your wit's end and you don't know what to do, but you've never tried therapy, I encourage you to consider that option. right? Consider that. And then let us know if you've never gone to therapy and you seek one out and you go. Let us know how it's going, right? Let us know, the benefits that you are seeing from that. But I really just wanted to talk about that and just encourage you to really use that as a viable option on your journey. And like always, we really end the show with an affirmation, right? We end the show, and the reason that we do that is because I never want to leave you out there alone, right? I want to always affirm you. I always want to build you up and let you know that whatever you're going through, that you can get through it and that you are more than able and capable of seeing victory on the other side. But today's affirmation is that I seek help when needed and I reap the reward. And that's simple. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Healing Over Everything podcast. I am your host, T, and we'll talk soon.